네, 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 1시 30분부터
So in a second at 1:30 on the dot, we will start the first session, International Collaboration and the Role of Government in Sustainable Safe Community. So please enter the conference hall and take your seat. Thank you.
네, 행사장 뒤편에
And in the back of the conference hall, we have the translation receivers ready. So if you want, please get them. Channel number 1 for Korean, 2 for English, and 3 for Japanese. And for the smooth proceeding of the conference, I kindly ask you to switch your mobiles into vibration mode or manual mode. Thank you.
네, 그럼 첫 번째 세션
Okay, now let me introduce the moderators of this session 1. Lee, the professor at Inje University. I'm glad to see all. Shall we start? This is the very first session at this academic annual conference, International Collaboration and the Role of Government in a Sustained International Safe Community. Indoors, we are mandated to wear masks, but we don't have many channels for the accurate enunciation. I tried. Now I'm taking off my masks. And also, virtually, we are joined by Lu Pai from Taiwan. Welcome her with a big round of warm applause. For the session, we're going to listen to 3 presentations and they're followed by the panel discussions. For the sustainable safe community, they will talk about international collaboration and the roles of the government. So we will now listen to how the actors in the networks of the safe community work together. The first presentation will be delivered by Lu Pai.
Okay, so let me first introduce you, the Lu Pai. She has received the PhD from the United States, and for the past 30 years, and she has she has been working as a researcher as well as a professor in Taiwan in the field of safe community. And so far in Taiwan, the 23 of the cities have been certified as the safe cities, certified as safe 3 cities, and Lu Pai has contributed a lot in this regard. She also works as the jury and then also the reviewer in Taiwan for the safe cities. So let's first hear our presentation from Lu Pai. Okay, Professor Lu Pai, please. 우선 팬데믹
circumstances of the pandemic. Then I would like to thank the conference for the invitation and the great assistance which allows me to participate in the conference by video and online. I'm Lu Pai, the chair of Taiwanese Community Safety Promotion Center and the chair of Asian Coalition of International Safe Community Support Centers. Having been involved in the international safe community movement for more than 20 years, I deeply appreciate its importance and the difficulty in advancing it. Today, I want to share with you some of my experiences in promoting the safe community movement over the years, hoping to help the communities and the individuals who want to join this movement. My topic is working with international through support centers, strengthening community engagement in promoting safety. Let's review the international safe community movement a little bit. Well, we all know that safety and health are fundamental human rights. But unlike health promotion only relies on the leadership of health units, safety promotion is concerned by separate units in various fields and hardly to cover all kinds of safety. Our predecessors already recognized that combining public and private sectors in various fields to develop safety promotion program and using scientific methods to implement them at the community level will be able to improve the safety of the people in the community more comprehensively. In order to ensure the quality of the program, safe community indicators have been set and a certifying process has been established to promote safe community to the world. Since its launch in 1989, the international safe community movement has continuously strived to improve its quality and effectiveness. The support centers was established to promote the concept of safe community and facilitate the development of safe communities. Today, there are 23 certified international safe community support centers around the world, located in 19 countries on 6 continents. If you get on the website of International Safe Community Certifying Center, and you can see this front page, and on the upper right corner, you will see the networks. If you press the network, you will see the 23 support centers listed here. What those support centers do? They promote the concept of safe community and help the community develop into a safe community and provide consultations and references materials to the community and organizing safe community workshops to train the workers for the safe communities. And they translate and provide the latest information from the International Safe Community Certifying Center. And they assist the community to apply for certification to become an international safe community. And they also facilitate the community interact with other communities nationally and internationally. And they even can assist the community to hold or to participate in conferences like this and traveling seminars and so on. But from the standpoint of a community, participating in the international safe community movement requires international cooperation. But the biggest obstacle is language, especially for communities in Asian countries. So the support centers here can help to remove the barrier and give all kinds of support in these regards. And to develop and be certified as an international safe community, a community needs the support center to help them to fully understand and follow the international indicators and their guidelines to develop their safe community. To collect and understand a variety of effective injury prevention and safety promotion strategies and methods, they also need the support centers to help them. And also, the community needs the support centers to help them to apply to the International Safe Community Certifying Center and be certified as an international safe community. That includes write the application reports, making arrangement of the evaluation process, and even assisted in during the certification and designation ceremony. In addition to that, the community also needs the support centers to learn and share experience with international safe communities internationally. For example, to find and learn from good examples around the world, or to attend the international conferences and seminars, and exchange visits with communities in different countries, even align with communities in other countries as sister communities. Here are the examples of sistership between communities from Taiwan and Japan. On the top two the top two photos shows that the community Wenshan district of Taipei City in Taiwan is signing the sistership with Toshima in Japan. And the bottom two photos shows that the Wenshan also signing the sistership with Matsubara in Japan. The support centers on both sides facilitate their alliance, and sister communities learn from each other and encourage each other to make their safe community programs go further smoothly and sustainably. So far, the two communities, Wenshan and Toshima, have been designated as international safe communities 3 times already. And Matsubara is preparing for the 3rd time designation. Now let's look at how a community can develop into a safe community. There are top-down models and bottom-up models. And both models have some pros and cons. And let's take a look at top-down model. Usually this model, the program is led by the government, and it's based on the policy, of course, and they got enough budget to run it. And usually because it's led by the government, so it's well organized and have highly efficient work. But on the other hand, they also have some disadvantages. For example, the lack of consensus from the community, and they don't have enough manpower, and the residents usually don't pay much attention to the program. So the continuity of the program is not guaranteed. How about the bottom-up model? The bottom-up model usually based on the community's needs and led by the community people. So they have the common consensus, and the residents participate in the program eagerly, and the volunteer manpower is enough. And so it seems that this kind of a program can have the very good promising for their continuity. However, because of the community program is led by the community people, so they're always looking for resources and they're loosely organized, so lack of efficiency. But in either way, the top-down or bottom-up models needs communities' engagement. It is very important for the top-down model to have the community involvement, because once you have the community involved more, then you would have better understanding about the community's real situation and actual needs, so that the Safe Community Program can be in line with community's opinions and consensus. And also because of the involvement of the community people and the volunteers can supplement the lack of manpower from the government. And the residents will be more motivated to care about community safety issues. And because they pay attention to safety issues, the community safety program has better chance to be continued. And the community involvement in bottom-up model it is no question about it. The community initiate the program, so the community centered is in nature, and they based on the community's needs and for community's interests. So it seems that the steady involvement of the individuals, groups, and the NGOs has to rely on the common consensus, friendship, and emotional support for each other. If they can keep a good relationship with all kinds of public and private sectors as partners, then the sustainability of the program is their common expectation. So we can conclude that the strengthening communities' engagement in promoting safety can ensure the implementation and sustainability of the Safe Community Program. Thank you for your attention.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. And we about the Australia, Taiwan, and the Japan. We have a lot of experts from these areas, and I had a chance to research the safe cities in these areas, and then the safe centers, the certified centers, actually play a lot on the pivotal roles in making our world a safe city. So thank you very much, Lu Pai, for your insightful the presentation. Let me introduce you our second presenter.
He is the Secretary General of ISCC in 2018. When the Sejong was first designated, he came to Sejong from Sweden. So he was on site visit. So I'm sure he has a special attachment to Sejong. Let me introduce him first briefly. He is now Secretary General of ISCC, and he's now serving for the international community around the world. He earned the bachelor's, master's degree when it comes to the urban planning at the Northern Institute of Urban Planning. He also studied at education in epidemiology in Tufts University in the United States. Because of the jet lag, although he is now waking up and joining us.
Safety is a traditional top-down system. Here I show you a model of how it traditionally works. At the national level, there are responsibilities in the different ministries, and the different ministries work together with the regional level and the local level. And they are governing the different projects, and the regional level and the local level participate participate with and contribute with the resources and measurements. The duties to participate are often regulated in different constitutions or legislations. The collaboration between safety programs in different sectors are often very little. And at the local level, if you look at the local level here, we can see that the work together between the different projects and sectors are very doesn't participate so much, only with money and other kind of resources. The citizens are objectives for the projects and not participating as an subject. They are objects but not subjects. And During the time, we have a lot of development in the world since we started with safe communities. One is subsidiarity. There we can see that national resources, according to the subsidiarity principle, public responsibilities exercise as close as possible to the citizens. There is one principle all over the world, and it adopted by UN habitants and other organizations, and we can see it everywhere. In the European Union, we also have a regulation that local authorities always shall be consulted, if possible, with all matters which concern them directly. For example, big roads or big defense and operation possibilities. UN cities, United Cities and local governments also have a global report. There they have mapped and investigated the decentralization in different countries and how the power is moved from national level via regional level to local level. And they conclude that decentralization is, in its strictest sense, a method of organization, and today implies democracy. And it's very important also that they two are going parallel. Then we have had an international movement to introduce new public management in the communities with standardization, clear, transparent, and comparable everything. And it's they have adapted from the business sector, and it's mostly about planning, budgeting, responsibilities, and competing between different cultures. Then we have also a movement called safety culture. That means safety first, and its impact on attitude and values. And we have seen that Korean communities have adopted this first of all of the communities in the world. So it's very good to see. And it's about leadership, and it's about two-way communication. It's about employees' involvement, and it's about learning culture, and it's about attitude towards blame and report. So always you have to report all kind of unsafety, what happened in the organization, and you are not blamed for that. So it's a safety first culture from the leadership to the bottom in the organization. In the safe community movement, we started 1989, and it was what we usually call a paradigm shift when it comes to communities and safety. So there we have emphasized on collaboration between the different sectors that come from the national level. So, and in order to plan and to organize the safety, we have to have a local civilians system, and we call it round table when the local civilians result or reported to the people in the community, the mayor, the head of administrations and representatives for NGOs and other interested groups. And we know that local data always engaged local people. We talk about that the local data is the locomotive for local safety work. And it's also one principle that all accidents are possible to prevent. So it's why we start. We started also with that citizens and all other active in the community participate as subjects, not as passive objects for safety. And it's what we call the democratic dimension. And from the start, it is that we start with engagement and participation. Participation result in engagement. Engagement result in responsibility. And the responsibility is resulting participating in the local democracy. And here we can see that also the community must participate in the national and international communities network. So it was why we introduced this. So here we have the model of the safe community, and here you can see that the national program coming from top, but when we look, and in the community we have cross collaboration, so we are connected, all work coming from above in the community, and these are handling and planning and working within the cross-sector collaboration. And therefore the result is that we produce a seamless service in the community, and it's also result in the safety culture. The community has also a responsibility, a wider responsibility to participate in safety, not only in the safety project coming from a national level, also in the master plan and in urban planning, the community participate in building safety. So in the community, there also can plan for less traffic when it comes to master planning, and also with more public transportation. So it's increased safety because accidents in the traffic are so important when it's come to the community level. And so we also in the community can demonstrate safety first. For example, in all buildings communities have, all streets they are maintaining, and all cars the community use. So the community can have well-equipped cars that are equipped with, for example, alcohol, and also with car with speed limits and so on. In the community also we can have contract with employees, all employees, and also with contractors to always demonstrate safety and always use safety first. To, for example, always use all safety equipments like helmets and belts and alcohol and such things. And a community can also, via the support to different sport associations and other associations, They can also introduce and they can regulate, so they support such organizations more that are used safety first equipment. And a community can also collaborate with, for example, restaurants when it's come to alcohol. Alcohol is, as we all know, very dangerous in two aspects. When it's served at restaurants, first, it increases the possibility for violence. People used to be more violent when drinking alcohol, and it's a responsibility for the restaurants not to give people so much alcohol. And also alcohol can also is very dangerous if it's combination with driving cars. So the restaurants can have, the community can have impact on the restaurants, so they don't serve alcohol to drivers. And also a community can have support to parents who use safety equipment for their children, for example, babysitters in cars and so. So here is some examples on safety work in the community that is not only for coming from national level. It's often safety works that are produced and take initiative to in the local community. So it's, and therefore it's very important to know that. Internationally, we know that new community can develop safety alone, even if it's a very big community, as we have many big communities in our safe community, like Sejong, for example. But the safety work is so complex and so comprehensive that we must collaborate between all communities in the world. Every community can take one part. It's a lot of similarities in communities, in organization and structure all over the world. And it's also similarities when it came to education structure. So for example, an architect, civil engineer, traffic engineer, fire brigade personnel, and so social workers, they have always the same structure of education. Internationally, we know that this new public management has given us a lot of opportunity to work together in between communities. New public management is a lot of methods from the business sector when it comes to budgeting and so. And there the communities all over the world have taken the same. So they can work together in following up the budget, following up results, following up how people participate and how people are satisfied with different safety measures. The principle of subsidiarity is also very important, and it's possible to follow by the communities and also the development by the communities and work together by the communities. So finally, as you have heard, I have seen that there are a lot of similarities between communities. And very often we hear in our movement that there are so big difference between communities. And of course there are differences, but there are more similarities in the world. And when I have been working with communities, I always have found that there are so many similarities. For example, when you are sitting, have dinner with the mayor, and when the mayor have talking about all of the home community and its successful work, he used to say that from national level, we have got a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, but we have not got money now. It's the worst problem all the mayors have. The other question is often that sectors in the community, for example, fire brigade, urban planning, social service, and so they are very nice people and very clever people working there. But how can I get them to work together in a proper way for safety, for example? It's a problem. And the third problem is that there is a lot of sector work from national level, from our level and so, but the community, people in the community and the enterprises in the community, they want to have a seamless service. And it's my big problem to get my people in the community to provide a seamless service. So I have to stop here because of time. I'm very happy to have this possibility to have this talk during this conference. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다. 총장님께서는 전 세계 435개 도시의 안전도시 무브먼트를 지원하고 계시고요. 또 이 자리에 계시는
The Secretary General supported the safe promotion movement in 434 safe communities and how the safe community can contribute to the citizen participation. What I listened is that based upon the academic background and the on-site engagement, he suggested that national and local level, how we can make the right direction for the citizen participation and international collaboration. In that sense, his talk is really useful.
드리겠습니다.
Okay, now let me introduce to you our next the presenter. He is Sung-gi Kang. Is the manager at the Disaster Response Policy Bureau at the Ministry of Administrative and Safety. Just let me introduce you, the manager Sung-gi Kang. He graduated Korea University, and his major was administration. And he also earned the master's degree, and then he in terms of just the teenager education and the safety, and he is really an expert in terms of the safe the community, the safe communities of Sejong. And then, so we are so pleased to have him here out of his very busy schedule. So shall we invite him on stage? Okay, let's welcome him with a big round of applause. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kang Sung-gi, manager at the Disaster Response Policy Audit Bureau at the Ministry of Administration and Safety. For the better communication, allow me to take off my masks. Before I make this presentation, I had a chance to visit Japan as key city in the year 2018, and during that there was a 9th annual conference of the Safe City, and then I was very honored to be able to attend that conference, and I was able to learn quite a lot about the safe cities, and then also learned a lot of the activities they are doing. And then during then, what I learned from that experience was that quite a lot of cities are who are very successful in terms of the safe communities have very active participation and engagement by the citizens, and then I found it very impressive. And and then just a few other weeks ago, I was asked to make a presentation for this conference. And then since then, I kind of worried about, and then I've been thinking what I should share with you. And then I decided to talk about the disaster management of the Korean government, and especially the Sejong City government. So I wanted to talk about the kind of systems that we have in regard to this the disaster management, and then how we work together with the citizens, especially those the volunteers. I want to also share with you the kind of the special autonomous community disaster prevention squads that we have in our city. So first, let me excuse me. So first, let me talk about the concept of this disaster. The disaster means that the largest scale of the incidents that can or damage that's almost so serious that it may paralyze the basic function of the communities. And then according to the Korean the basic law in regard to the disaster and the safe management, we categorize it we divide it into two. First one is a natural the disaster, and the other one is a social disaster. And then we also on the subcategory we divide them into typhoon, heavy rain, explosion, and fire. So then we have several response measures per different type. And when it comes to disaster management, it is a very broad concept, so that we can, in a very broad manner, we can say that it means a kind of activity that we do as a very broad manner to minimize any kind of the impact or the damage that may occur due to those kind of the damages, due to those kind of the disasters, or the kind of also including the actions that we do to prevent disasters from happening. And so it is a very broad concept which encompasses the prevention, response, and restoration. And we do not have a very specific principles on the disaster management in Korea, but we do have we can categorize about 8 basic principles in this regard, so that the core idea lies in when we have in regard to the disaster management is that the first one, the very capable, the relevant minister, the government ministry or the institution should be at the core, should be the leading entity when it comes to preparing the response measures in regard to the disasters. And then we also the second principle is that all those relevant the institutions need to work collaboratively, and then also this disaster response the manuals should be in place. So then normally we have about 13 collaborating the functions in Korea. And then we also, well, when it comes to the disaster management, we should be able to work collectively, encompassing all this the relevant agencies and institutions together. And then for this central the government ministry, we should have a kind of the control tower, which can work as the head commander as well as the coordination the agency. And now, let me tell you more about each stages of the disaster management. So the first step is the disaster prevention. That means we remove any kind of the risk factors before we encounter any kind of disaster. So by doing so, we can minimize the risks of the disasters. One example can be is that when we have to prepare for this damages by the heavy rain, what we can do is that we can work on the riverside, and then have the dams. We can work on the dams so that stronger dams, or we can also work on the height of the dams, the fences, to prevent any kind of the risks that may happen during this heavy rain season. And so there are other protective devices or safety related devices that we can make use of, and also we can install safety the buildings or the safety devices to minimize the risks. And next one is the disaster readiness. And then what I mean by that is that we prepare, we come up in advance on what we will do when we actually face the disasters. So because having this very concrete response measures is very important, and having this kind of the manual in advance is also very crucial. So what I mean for this second the stage is having the manual, very specific and concrete manual on the disaster management. And then also the next stage is the actual response. So the response is what we mean by that we are actually we are anticipating the disaster situations is actually upcoming in a very urgent manner. So that what we can do at this stage is that what we need to do to evacuate the victims, and then what we can do to minimize any further damage. So in this stage, we need to work We need to work collectively, and then closely with the relevant institutions, like the Central Disaster Management Bureau or the regional disaster management the committees, and then, we also need to have this material support as well. And then, these kind of the support encompasses this evacuation command on the evacuation, and then also this the setting up the identifying the risk zones, and then also the key point here is that as we are already anticipating the great damage to come, or great disasters ahead of us. So that very speedy action is key at this stage. So that and then because when it comes to disastrous situation, we like human beings. so that there are key personnel such as the relevant government officers or police officers or fire officers, but we in many cases select the relevant personnel, so that we also need to invite the autonomous community disaster prevention squads. These are the volunteer citizens that we need to work closely with them, and then they can be in a disaster situation. They will play. We always need to keep in mind that they play very crucial roles. And then now the next stage is the restoration stage. And then, but because when we first encountered the disaster, then when we are witnessing the damages that are actually happening, what we can do as a priority is we need to deal with this emergency situation. And then when when the situations are very emergency, the situations are somehow got better, then we have to start to work on we need to work on the restoration stage so that we can go back to our ordinary normal life. And next, I will talk about how we can all work together more collectively, so that when it comes to working together and working collectively, it's not just I'm not just talking about working with other government agencies or the local governments, but there are so many others we can invite to work other with, so that and then just to give you some examples that the support and then the engagement by the civilians is really crucial. And then when we talk about this, the civilian, the volunteers, then having them as a big organization, getting support from them is very important. It's an individual support, individual help is very important. But I would say that if those the people are all come together, and then if they form a kind of the organization, the trained organization, then they can be really helpful. So some of the examples of such is the community disaster prevention squads. These kind of this private sector, they are like the civilian organizations. They can be very helpful when we deal with this disaster situations. We also have the civilian volunteers for the volunteering fighters, and then they are not just as any ordinary volunteer workers. They are very trained in preventing the fires, and then they are also very trained in the fighting the fires. And so that they work with a lot of relevant experts in the various stages. And why the reason that I talk very highly of this of the autonomous community disaster prevention squad is that if the citizens who are actually living in that area, and then if they are also participating in this kind of the community, the disaster prevention work, then they can really play a crucial role, because since they already live there, they are really they know about their community and their environment very well. And then since they are also very trained in a disaster prevention work, they can play a very crucial, that they can do quite a lot of work in a very emergency situation. And then since we and then there was one chance that on the 8th, in one case on the 8th of August, there was a very heavy rain, and then the evacuation, the work was somehow delayed, because there was so much, we got so much 911 calls, and then our firefighters were not able to deal with each and one of them, so that the disaster prevention squads were they were involved as well. And then so far as I know, they saved 7 families, and they really did a lot of great job. And then, as you all know, as you have all experienced, during this summertime this year, a lot of these local communities suffer from heavy rain and typhoon. And then, as you can see from this screen, it talks about the news article on this Chungmun, the province, and then there's the autonomous disaster prevention squads. They really did very well. And then, but not just they were involved not just during this disaster situation, but they were also involved in the pre-inspection and the prevention stage as well, such as like the reviewing and the inspection on this the water drainage and stuff. So we also worked together with those people so that to check the condition of this the facilities, so that by having this kind of very close partnerships and the collaboration, and then having this kind of the very trained the civilians, we together were able to fight against the disasters. And then in Korea, we have the statistics wise, these kind of the squads are formed in a city, county, and the town the level. And then in the nationwide, we have about 228 the cities who have this kind of the civilian squads. And then the total the 69,218 persons are participating in the community disaster prevention squads. And then age-wise, about people in their 50s and 60s are the most active in participating in this kind of the prevention squads. And then we are very grateful to have these the 50 people in their 50s and 60s who are willing to participate in the disaster prevention squads. But we also would like to invite more the younger the generation people to participate in this kind of the disaster prevention works. So as you can see from this chart, we also have those volunteer workers who have a very specific the experts. And then the budget-wise, also the local governments they spend about it's slightly more than 1 billion Korean won. 10 billion Korean won on the training and the education, and then also the supplies for those for disaster prevention squads. And then for the Ministry of Administration and the Safety, we also also provide about quite 146 million Korean won the education or the training of the special the civilian squads, the disaster prevention squads. And if you look at it very carefully, in activity-wise, and for we have about the 59% of the activities are held in the urban areas, and then 41% in the non-urban areas. And then for the prevention activities that we do, it covers the training or the participation in the safety-related campaigning movements, or the pre-on-site inspections and etc. And then also, we also are working. We are also doing quite a lot of activities like this: the inspection, and also the checking the disaster-related, the disaster management supplies. And then also this, we check on the evacuation sites, and then we run the regular patrols. And then also that's what we also work together to deal with to the civilian evacuation sites. And then we also together make the reports on the status of the damage state, the damages, and then how many people were injured, and then how many damages were made. And then also we all together, and then we also remove, and we also work on this environment infrastructure restoration. But we are there are also need more room for development. And even if we have the community disaster prevention squads, and then each city governments are encouraging their community people to take part in this kind of the volunteering works. But we still lack quite a lot of people to facilitate to have a much the active the disaster management, the activities. We need to have more volunteers to participate. Next, then let me talk about what we need to do to further develop the community disaster prevention squads. And what we can do is as a policy wise to further promote disaster preventions. So for us, what we need to work on is that we need to focus a lot more on the prevention stages. So that what we can do here is that we need to identify and detect more of the vulnerable facilities, and then especially examples of such can be the very slippery, or stiff areas, or the kind of the areas that have very risky factors around surroundings. So that having the designated the workforce who can run the regular checkups of the vulnerable areas, and who can and then we also need to have more of the regular pre-inspection the activities, so that we can remove the risky factors in advance, or we can better identify the vulnerabilities. And the second thing is that we need to have a very concrete and detailed response measures, because even if we do have the kind of the safety, the prevention, the measures, such as if we have this the very strong the entry and exit the manuals in the risky zones, and even if we have those people who can work on site in the civilian evacuation sites, but there are also people that who need more the support, who need more help, and the examples of such will be the elderly person who live by themselves, or the people with disabilities. And then even if we have this evacuation sites ready, that we also need to find out who need the kind of people that we have in our communities, and also need to identify those people who need more help, and then or any kind of unique or special help, so that we need to identify those people, so that in the case of this disasters, we can we can allocate the workforce who can the designated special workforce who can work with these kind of the people with the disabilities or with more help, so that having kind of this designated the workforce, and then also identifying the people who need more help is very important. The next one is that we need to strengthen our expertise and the expertise, and then there as during my speech, I have mentioned that during our community disaster prevention, among our community disaster prevention squads, that they have some of them have the very special skills, and then if we can make great use of them, and then also provide them with special training opportunities, then we can work more closely on a more effective manner when we encounter disastrous situations. So that because the community disaster prevention squads, these are civilian people, they need to at many times they need to work as a team, so that they're giving them the trainings or the education, so which can in a way that they can nurture their expertise, then we can work much better, much more effectively and productively when we encounter the disastrous situation. And these are the several things that I wanted to talk about. These things, and before I finish, let me summarize what I want my big points. The first one is that the community disaster prevention squads are those group of people who live who are the residents of that community, and then they are the civilians, and then but what we can do to better work with them is that we need to work very closely with those people, and then what also that we need to know, we need to identify the risky and the vulnerable facilities, and we need to work more on this pre-inspection and prevention stage, and then also that we need to identify who are the vulnerable groups in our community, and what kind of help they need in what kind of situations. We need to have the better understanding of their status quo, the group of people who need more help, and what kind of situation, what kind of infrastructure do we have, and is it vulnerable? What are the risky areas? What can be vulnerable when we encounter the disastrous situations? And having this a very clear and a better understanding of who we are and where we live in and whom we deal with, where we can get support from, and then also providing them the training opportunities, and then if we can do all this, I'm sure that we can have better. That we can respond much better when we can deal with the disaster prevention. So thank you very much for the great presentation. The manager Song-gi Kang is from the Ministry of Administration and Safety. Thank you very much for sharing with us very practical the examples, and then. Mr. Song-gi Kang is an expert in terms of the designing the disaster the response policy plans, and then also that he has a great understanding in this regard. So he also provides quite a lot of the advice and the consultations to those countries in need. So thank you very much for sharing the great your insights and very practical the examples. So now, since the three presentations are over, it's time for discussions. So the discussion panels, please come up to the podium. So we need some time to prepare. So let me introduce you the panels. So the two key panels is Mr. Jun Lee. He's the senior researcher at the Korean Transport Institute, and that he also works. He also contributed a lot on the policy making in this regard. And then Mr. Eun Seok Lee is our another panel, and that he is the senior researcher at the Architect Urban Research Institute. And then his the expertise also encompasses the safe cities and the safe facilities and what we can do, what the safe buildings, the safe facilities can contribute to having the safe communities. So the both of the panels that also contributed a lot for the safe communities. So they also they were awarded the presidential they were awarded for their great contribution and performance.
Thank you. I am research fellow at Korea Transport Institute. Okay, I need some time to warm up myself, but anyway, I'm given the microphone. Again, I'm very grateful to you for being here with us because you concern about making the community safer, although you cannot feel it. But now I remind myself is that I'm living in a safe community. But I'd like to disseminate this fact to the other residents. And also citizen participation is really important. So you talk to your neighbors about this conference. So I put together the presentations. My input, my contribution is that there are many people who participate. I count how many times you mentioned the community, 37 times. Community, disaster, and safety are really correlated. For the first presentation, I think there are several lessons we can learn. We have now spread out the responsibilities and duties in the disaster management. So although you go to the rural areas, for example, we have a certain duration, how fast the firefighter brigade will arrive, because there's a universally standardized disaster management systems. Maybe that is the advantage of top-down safety management, but slowly we are talking about the bottom-up, and the first speaker also talked about the advantage and disadvantage of the bottom-up and top-down management, which is really helpful. The second one is he talked about the subsidiarity principle, so that the citizen-led or the residence-oriented community development should be the mainstream. And that studied in Japan, how we build up the community, how we promote the safety in the communities. That was actually studied in Japan. Also, the correct accuracy of the data. So he also talked about the accurate data is the locomotive for the safe community movement. And safe first culture, although he highly praised about the safe first culture in Korea, we have also the very sad past in the past. But we turn these sad events into the good opportunities to do more. Just like in Japan, the reason why they are stronger disaster management response system is that because they learned some lessons that was reflected in the policy formulation and practice. And there is also raising awareness. So in the future, before we are faced with the disasters, safety incident, we have to do more to cover that incident in advance. About the reporting about the incidents, Guldbrand mentioned that when the incident happens, we need to find the fact-finding missions. You have to know why we do this, why we conducted this. It's not about the penalizing the persons who is to be blamed. We have to punish them. But rather than that, we have to identify the cause, what brought these issues, how it can be avoidable. I think that is the important one when we have fact-finding missions. Also, the Guldbrand talk about the data again. We have lots of data being generated, and it's about the ownership of the data. Who created the data? The data was created as a result of my actions and transactions, but somebody else is now having access to them and use them. So who takes the ownership of the data? And we tended to hide the data. For example, they say that data is not perfect, so we cannot make it public, or the privacy issues. But instead of hiding them, we have to make it public, disclose it, so that it can be utilized as part of the intellectual assets. The last presentation was also very fascinating in the sense that, so I have a better understanding because he speaks in Korean. He is, I think, inarguably the best expert in disaster management in Korea. I learned lots of lessons, but my personal opinion is, first of all, social disasters and man-made disasters are now divided. But it's very ambiguous about this classification. He also talked that we split it into the disasters to enhance effective management. However, there is also combining issues. Three factors come into play to have a disaster. It means multifaceted responses. So maybe we need the paradigm shift in thinking and categorizing the disasters. And about the continuity about the disaster, when it comes to the disaster management, we have a prevention, preparedness, response, and rescue. But prevention and preparedness are dealt with the ministers in different sectors. But response is like a police officer, Coast Guard, and the headquarters of a disaster. So there is no continuity. I believe that all the stages should be put together in continuous manner. But currently there is a silo. So from the unit of respective ministers, they do their best for the prevention and the preparedness, but when the disaster occurs, they are a little bit lazy when it comes to the responding and the rescue. I think that is reality check. The last one is we have a permanent rescue versus the temporary one, so meaning that we go back to where we used to be. This is a recovery definition, but in Japan, they say this is a reconstruction. Or I'm not saying we use this terminology, meaning that we have to get it better when we go back. Instead of going back to where it used to be, for example, when the two-way roads are now broken, and then when you build up, we can make a 4-lane road, for example. So we get it better when you recover. So instead of, again, back to the square one, maybe we can get it better when we create the new circumstances and environments. My cautious contributions. Thank you.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. So let's invite one more the panel for his short remark before we begin the open discussion.
To finish it, could you please moderate? Could you please lead for our discussion?
How about the other Mr. Lee?
Yeah.
Is he going to
After
give
finishing
some
his speech.
discussion? Huh?
after finished his another discussion to speech finished after will be you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want me to lead the rest of the discussion now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm really learned a lot from this session. All the presenters and give us a lot of information regarding not only the how the safe communities movement is about, but also how to make it work, and especially for the communities who work together with the government, and this top down and bottom up, we have to join together, and especially when we have something like a disaster, and really we cannot just rely on the government to do something for us, but we also, as the residents, we also have to do something for ourselves. So that's why they always say that you have to help yourself first, then you will get help from others. Yeah. Okay, now we would like to open the discussion from the floor or from the online friends and elsewhere. Is there any questions to the speakers today?
Okay, Professor Lu Pai, another discussion will be prepared the speech after his speech. How about start our discussion?
Now he's ready.
Yeah.
Now he's ready. Yes. Okay. Please.
Yes, I'm
Mr.
ready.
Lee. Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Eun-seok Lee, and I work at Architecture and Urban Research Institute. And I been working in the field of architecture, and then I was really amazed that in such a global scale, that the city, the city safety and the city architecture, the issue and agenda has been very actively promoted. I've been really amazed by that. And let me share with you some kind of overall ideas about what I felt listening from the previous presenters. As Mr. Lee has said that when it comes to disaster in Korea, as our society has become the more advanced, and that is the kind of the disaster that we experience is much more complex, and that is that it occurs in a more the combined manner, and then it also that happens. The disasters are that we are witnessing a lot of the disasters in an urban setting, and when we have experienced these disasters in an urban setting, the kind of the damages or the risks that it would have on our society can be very critical, and it can be very severe. So that for us, that it's very important for us to have this preventive measures so that we need to have very detailed and concrete methodologies in this regard. And based on what I have the research so far in the public sector, and having this very the infrastructure is very important because it may have direct impact on the safety, health and safety of our citizens, and also the property. So, and that. Well, in our reality, it is impossible for us to prevent or to predict every and all and kind of the risks and then the damages. It's impossible. We cannot prevent all of them. Then and then also that we do not, we cannot spend all of our budget just solely on the disaster prevention, so that we need to be very careful and that we need to be very smart when allocating the limited resources. So that we need to set priorities. So that's what I would suggest, is that we need to have there's a very firm, there's a good idea, the various smart ideas on the urban planning. And then when it comes to the less developed areas, well, they are much more vulnerable to the disasters. So that we need to select very priority the sites and the areas where need more the support. And so we need to identify the risk and dangerous the locations and the facilities and sites, and then target those areas. We need to target these areas first, and then we also need to have a very good the data and the statistics in this regard. Well, then, but before that, to have that, that we need to think about how should we collect these kind of the data, from where, and who will provide these kind of the data. Maybe that data can be provided by the citizens who actually live in that communities, so that we need to work very closely with the citizens, and we also need to encourage our citizens to provide very useful data to the relevant government sectors, government institutions. And we used to have this top-down. We used to approach in a top-down manner when it comes to this city designing, the safe city designing. But we need to we also need to think about the down top as well, and then be more flexible. And then we also need to come up with very the detailed ideas on how we can remove the risk factors in advance, and how we can prevent any risks in advance. And then to do so, we need to work closely with our citizens, and then especially because to identify the risk zones, the risk areas, we need to have we need to collect data, and then these data can be from our citizens, and then we also the relevant the government officers or institutions need to work harder to identify the kind of the vulnerable areas, vulnerable facilities and buildings, and then the local government they need to take the lead in identifying those areas, and then to fix the problems that they have. And then in Korea, we have categorized the natural disasters in a very detailed manner in a per category. But even if we identify each and one of the disasters very clearly, but nowadays we also see that disasters happen in a combined manner. So 2 or 3 types of disasters come together and happen, and they have a great risks on our lives. And then that means that we also need to respond to the natural disasters in a much more collective and integrative manner. So that means we need to work very closely with other the stakeholders, with other government agencies as well, so that having a close partnership with the relevant government agencies, and also working very closely with the citizens, and then to collect relevant and useful data is very important. And then also that the local government they need to have very good reports and the statistics on where are the vulnerable areas, where are the vulnerable the buildings and stuff, so that we need to have a very clear the picture of where we are and our status quo. And then so that we need to work together. And then, as the previous the presenter have mentioned, we do have the volunteers, the very good volunteers at the community disaster prevention squads, and they're the volunteers are the citizens. Their help and support is very crucial. But since the support is on a voluntary basis, it may not be the sustainable. So that we also need to think about what we can do to seek their support, to get their support on a much more the sustainable manner. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Okay. Now, can you hear me? Because I think there's some connection problem right now. I cannot hear from you.
I can hear your voice, and I can.
Oh, okay. Now I can hear you now. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Now, so we got only 2 minutes left. So, any questions from the floor or from the other participants through online? Well, Guldbrand, do you have any?
Can I take a question to the architect?
Okay.
It's about floors. In Korea, you have very hard floors, and I have also found that you have not so standardized staircases, and we know that many accidents happen in homes. So what do you think about the floors in Korea? To make the floors softer or to change the habits to have the warmth from the floors? Or have you got any solutions to reduce these risk factors?
우리말로 대답을 해도 되죠? 네.
네, 감사합니다. Thank you for your question. I don't have any magic solution right now in my head, but consistently, steadily, to enhance the safety, we try to identify the risk factors in each local government. That's why we are developing the models, and that is happening in the academic field. But now these outcomes from the academic field need to be incorporated into the government so that the government officials can propose ideas, particularly within the context of the urban setting. I know the safety is really important because that is directly involved the injury and death. So again, academic field is very active in that field, but the question is next we have to how we work with the government officials and how they formulate the policies.
Thank you.
I'm Dale Henson. I'm the chair of the International Safe Community Certifying Centre. I have been struck over many years about safe communities don't understand enough about the importance of urban design for promoting safety, but just in my interactions with urban designers probably don't understand the people that they're designing for. And one of the things that struck me is so often international safe communities are in some ways trying to fix up the design problems from the past. And our indicators are in some way about trying to fix up historical problems. And that leads me to the question to put to you is how can safe communities work with urban planners and urban designers to design environments that are safe from the ground up? And how would that look differently in terms of the processes we should undertake?
Thank you. 이것도 제가 답을 해야 되는 거죠.
Oh, you need a translation.
Okay.
Okay, the case in point is the transportation, how we can enhance transportation in urban areas. That is happening in the urban planning. For example, to minimize and reduce the traffic accident, to lower the speed limit, like speed bumps. For example, in the past, we have to smooth up the flow of the traffic. That was the first priority in the past. But now, instead of flow of the traffic, the pedestrian safety is now coming first. We all embrace the idea. So to enhance the pedestrian safety, we are now doing this. For example, also we are doing more about the green infrastructure. Like the heat wave and flooding occur, maybe we can rely upon their natural resilience to minimize the impact from these disasters if we made less of green spaces. The problem is how we can put it up in the urban structures right now, existing structures. And that will also impact and increase the ecosystems of the urban setting so that we can more about the natural ecosystems. So it's not more about the safety, it's more about the landscape or the design and also the pleasant feeling of the residents. Everything is now coming to play. Thank you. Because of the time constraint, I think time is up. So I think the researcher Lee and Mr. Lee should be the part of this network council. The next session, session 2, will start 3:30. So unfortunately, we have to conclude the session 1. The event is now on air on the official website of ISCCC and the YouTube on live streaming. Thank you for staying with us until the last moment. And I really appreciate two speakers from Taiwan and Sweden to join us. So we will see again after 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.